Hi everyone, my name is Chris, and welcome to my board game guides. Today, I am going to do a basic guide on how to play Food Chain Magnate, a game where you're basically in charge of running your own fast food restaurant, and it's one of my favorite games. So let's take a look. Okay, so in Food Chain Magnate, your goal is to make the most money possible. And to do so, you start off by opening restaurants and selling them to your customers. So what you're seeing right here is the game board. The map is randomly generated every single game, and the size will depend on how many players there are. This version that you're seeing right now is set up for 2 players. So to point a couple things out, these purple squares right here and here, these are your customers. They're your consumers who really want to buy your products, whether it's burgers, beer, pizza, or lemonade. And these small areas right here are beverage distribution centers. The red one is for Coke, the yellow ones are for lemonade, and the green one is for beer. So at the start of your turn, you will basically be opening restaurants. And these are the restaurants. You get 3 of them for the entire game, but you'll then take these restaurants and populate them on the map however you choose. Your opponent will do the same thing. So the thing to note about these is that every restaurant has an entrance, which you can see kind of right here, that little corner that's marked out. That's your entrance. That's where people can go in and out of your restaurant. And you'll want it to be facing the road. So let's say we put our restaurant right over here. And of course, your opponent will probably do something similar. Let's say they put their restaurant right over here. So this means you have access to this road, your opponent will have access to this road. And before we go any further, I will say that roads are very important because they determine distance to your store. And I will explain why that becomes important later on. But great, you've set up your restaurant, you've opened it. Well, what's the next step? All right, the next step is to get your corporate hierarchy up and running. So in Food Chain Magnate, you are the CEO. Well, as you can see, the CEO has an ability which allows him or her to hire 1 person. On top of that, he also has a little org chart tree which allows him to control 3 other people, basically manage 3 other people. And those 3 people can be anything. It can be a waitress, it can be other managers, and so on. You'll also have different people you'll hire during the course of the game, like management trainees who can have 2 people underneath them, or upgraded later in the game to vice presidents who could have 4 people underneath them. Once you've decided which people you want to play, then you will basically determine what actions you will take throughout the round. So let me put together an example of what an organization might look like. Okay, so this corporate hierarchy that you'll see is not really something you'll see in an actual game because it's probably not optimal, but it'll be good for illustrative purposes because you'll then be able to see all the sorts of jobs that you might be able to put into your own corporate hierarchy when you play Food Chain Magnate, because all of these different jobs will allow you to do different things. So, first off, as I said before, we have the CEO. That is you. He can control 3 people and hire 1 person. Let's put him at the top. Then, because he can control 3 people, well, let's make that row be a row of 3 managers. So we'll have our management trainee. This guy can basically manage 2 people. That's all he can do, but it's a pretty useful skill. You also have a vice president who can manage 4 people. And then we will have ourselves a senior vice president, a senior VP, who can manage 5 people. So the CEO manages the senior vice president, the management trainee, and the vice president. So what other jobs can you employ? Well, I'm glad you asked. We have a trainer, a recruiting girl, and I know I'm going to be speeding through this, but I'll explain what each of these jobs do because they're pretty important within the span of this game, just to give you a bit of a taste. We have a marketing trainee, so this is how you make people want to buy your products. You have a brand manager, so it's this guy, also a marketer who can make people want to buy the products that you can produce. We will also have a new business developer. These guys allow you to build new houses and get more customers. Let's see. You also have, we'll just use a regional manager. These guys allow you to open new stores. So very, very useful. And then we move on to the food production team. So we have the errand boy. This guy, useful, allows you to start getting some drinks. And then we have our cart operator, also someone who gets drinks, but who can get more drinks than the errand boy. Finally, we have our kitchen trainee who can make food for your team, either 1 burger or 1 pizza. And then, of course, we have our cooks, a burger cook who will allow you to produce some burgers. It's kind of getting overflowing, so pardon that. And, of course, a pizza cook who can help you produce pizza. So this is the corporate hierarchy that you will hypothetically put out during the course of your turn. So when it is your turn, how are the steps to this game? How do the steps of this game flow? So the first phase is you recruit employees, and this is the hallmark of the CEO and naturally the recruiting girl. You can hire 1 person as well. So that means you can hire 2 people during your turn. So you could hire, I don't know, let's say you hire a waitress who can give you some money, and we'll use the second hiring action to hire, let's see, another management trainee because we might want to upgrade him later on. So let's get ourselves this management trainee. Okay, so you've hired your 2 people. Those 2 people don't get used immediately. Instead, they have to spend a turn basically off-site. So they're not in your corporate structure just yet. So they're just sitting around waiting to be used next turn. So once you're done with the hiring process, we move on to the training process. And this is where the trainer comes into play. So the trainer can train 1 person. And when you train somebody, you have to train somebody who is off-site. So for example, you can definitely train your kitchen trainee. And the symbols right here in the lower left corner tells you what he can be trained into. So you can take a kitchen trainee and turn him into a pizza cook or a burger cook. Likewise, the management trainee that you've just hired could easily become a junior vice president, a luxuries manager, or a new business developer. So you basically use the trainer to pick a card from your deck of people of jobs who are basically just taking a vacation or whatever, and you can train those to a higher level. Note that when you train them, you might cause them to require a salary. So keep that in mind. Make sure you're producing enough food and selling enough food that you can afford the salary. Great. So once you finish hiring and training, we now move on to the marketing campaigns. And marketing campaigns are really one of the major parts that make Food Chain Magnate so enjoyable. So the people who can do marketing are, of course, the marketing trainee, anybody who's in blue. So the marketing trainee. There's also campaign managers, and of course we played a brand manager this turn. So each player will then decide what kind of marketing campaigns they want to do. The marketing trainee can't really do that many marketing campaigns. And on top of that, he has to do it in a place that's close to where the original restaurant is located, two squares away at most. Whereas the brand manager can do marketing campaigns pretty much anywhere on the map. Also, the sorts of campaigns that people can do are also restricted by their rank. So marketing trainees can only do billboards, but don't underestimate billboards. Billboards can be pretty useful. Brand managers can do a little bit more, actually a whole lot more. For example, they can do mail campaigns using a little mailbox to basically circulate and encourage demand. They can also do airplane campaigns, have an airplane just fly around over the map and spread the message, encouraging people to consume, consume, consume. And then we have our radio campaigns, which can affect a large section of the map. So here's an example of a radio tower that you can employ. So those are the four types of marketing campaign that you can pull off. And with each job, you can put down one marketing campaign and then run it for however long you decide to. And I'll get into that once we really go into it. But for this case, let's just say we'll be putting a billboard campaign. So this little billboard right over here. And you can then decide what you want to advertise right here. Do you want to advertise burgers? Do you want to advertise drinks? Do you want to advertise pizza? let's say for the purposes of this exercise, we're going to make these houses want some good old pizza. And we'll do it for 2 turns. So here's some pizza tokens. We'll have them stacked on here for 2 turns. And for the brand manager, let's have him do a mailbox campaign, because mailbox campaigns can be pretty useful in getting people to want your goods. All right, so that's marketing. Let's say he will market, I don't know, Coke. These little Coke bottles. All right, so once you've got your marketing campaigns in order, time to get food and drinks. Well, the errand boy can definitely get 1 drink of any type. So obviously we've started marketing Coke, so maybe we might want to consider getting some Coke. And there's really no warehouse there's really no store that you have to always put these on. You can just put these in your little warehouse. I usually put them on my CEO just for kicks, or if I have a freezer, I'll put it in that. So the errand boy gets 1 Coke. The cart operator. Now the cart operator runs on a little bit more of a complicated thing. So let me kind of show you how this works. So here is the cart operator. He allows you to just send out a cart, drive around the map, and obtain drinks. So remember when I said that roads were pretty important in this game? Well, this is how it's going to work. So we start off at your restaurant, and let's say you want to get drinks. Well, the cart operator, see that little number right there? That means he can go 2 squares. And a square is determined every single time you cross from one box area to another box area. And you can plan whatever route you want, but that will allow you to get the drinks. And you can't make U-turns or anything special like that. So let's say you drive out from your restaurant over here, go 1, 2 spaces. Well, you just drove by a lemonade stand and a Coke distribution center, which allows you, because you're the cart operator, to get 2 Cokes and 2 lemonade. So here you go, 2 Cokes and your 2 lemonade. On top of that, your kitchen staff will also be producing. So we have the kitchen trainee who can produce a burger or a pizza. Let's just go with it and say we'll produce some pizza. 1 pizza. The pizza cook herself can produce 3 pizzas. So we're going to go ahead and add 3 more pizzas to the list. So 3 more pizzas to your inventory. And then we have the burger cook who can produce 3 burgers. So let's go do that. Here we go, 3 burgers. So your inventory is pretty stacked at this point. Well, that's basically the gathering food phase. And now we move on to placing new houses and gardens. And that's really what the new business developer does. He can go ahead and put down new houses, which means more customers for your fast food chain. And he can also do it pretty much anywhere on the board. So let's say we will go ahead, take this house. The game supplies you with plenty of houses, and we'll place a new house right here, just so it's close to your restaurant and not your opponent's restaurant. So that's basically it. And then you can also add a restaurant, which is what this regional manager allows you to do. So you can go ahead and place or move your restaurant. So we'll go ahead and place a new restaurant. Let's go right over. Let's go right over here. So you're close to the action. Great. So that is basically how you would play out through all the actions granted by the various people who you have working for you in a given turn. So in the next scenario, what I'll do is I'll show what happens once you decide to start selling product. So let's give me a second to move the board around and we'll get right to that. And basically what I'm going to do is say that people were demanding stuff already from a previous turn. How will people decide whether to buy stuff from you or buy stuff from your competition? So let's give me a second to do that. So basically we're working under the assumption that marketing campaigns from previous turns kind of went off and have basically created some demand. So let's just put some down a little willy-nilly. Let's say this house demands some Coke. This house also demands some Coke from a previous turn. This house also, for some reason, demands beer. And this house demands some burgers. Actually, let's make more houses demand some burgers. This house demands some burgers. This house demands some pizza. And this house demands pizza, pizza, and beer. Okay, so this is basically how the board looks. And what we will first do is go down the board, lowest house number, and then increasing, and see what they demand and whether anybody can fulfill that demand. So first we start with house number 2 all the way over in this corner. Doesn't want anything, we move on. Okay, well, we move on to house number 4. House number 4 wants pizza and beer. Now the thing about these customers is that they're very, very, very demanding. If they want pizza and beer, you need to provide pizza and beer. Otherwise, you're not selling to that house. And look at your inventory right here. You have Coke, you have burgers, you have pizza, you have lemonade, but you don't have any beer. So they're not going to buy from you. They're not going to go to your place to get one pizza and then move on to someplace else to get beer. No, no, no. You got to satisfy both. So if your opponent, instead, this guy over here, has pizza and beer, then he gets to sell. So this is unfortunately, let's say this is what happens. So he will sell the pizza and beer to house number 4. House number 4 is happy and gives him money. And the base price for any item is $10. So $10 for a pizza, $10 for a beer. And, well, your opponent will get $20 for selling both goods. All right. So the next house that we see is house number 6. House number 6 demands, you can't see it very well, burgers and beer. And burgers and Coke. And what do you know? We have burgers and Coke in our inventory. So, and our opponent, let's say, has no Coke. So you're the only one selling the stuff. Congratulations. You sell the burger and the Coke. The burger and the Coke get removed from that house. And you've made $20. All right, now we jump over to house number 7. House number 7 simply wants a pizza. Well, you've got pizza. But let's say we have a strange situation where your opponent also has pizza. Well, what we need to do is determine how far the restaurant is from the house. So you basically take the house and trace a route to each restaurant. So let's say we move one here, boom. There's only one space to your restaurant. So you would take the base price, $10, plus the distance, 1, for a total of 11. We trace it here, the road, also 1. To get to your opponent, so 10 plus 1 is 11. So what happens then? Well, there's a tiebreaker. Whoever has the most waitresses in their organizational chain will be able to get the business because, service is still pretty important. And obviously from the hierarchy, if you take a look back earlier, we had no waitresses. Let's say our opponent does. Well, they get the deal, so they are able to allow the customer to have pizza with excellent service, and they will collect $10 for it. Okay, the next house that we'll go to is house number 10, who wants burgers and pizza. Well, we can provide burgers and pizza, and let's say our opponent can too. So again, more competition ensues in that we look at the base price, $10. We don't look at both items, just the base price for one item, $10 plus the distance. Distance to my place is, we have to cross into one block, so that's 1, 2. So 10 plus 2 is 12. Whereas they can just go right across the street and get their burger and pizza. So 10 plus 0 is 10. 10 is lower than 12, so they will go to your opponent's place and have the burgers and pizza. And boy, you're not doing very well in terms of business. So how would you be able to compete for business? Let's say we go back to this house that demanded just one pizza, and we're both the same distance away from the house. Well, one way you can get their business is by lowering prices, and there's a job for that. Pricing manager, which lowers the prices by $1 for all items. So, for you, instead of this being $10 you start with 9. You calculate the distance, 1. So the total effort for this pizza for this consumer is 10, whereas your opponent doesn't have any price lowering strategies. So this is still priced at 10, plus 1 is 11. Your 10 is obviously smaller than your opponent's 11, so you get the business. But instead of selling a pizza for $10, you sell it for $9, and you will collect $9. So great. We go on to number 15. Remember what I said about the beer? If nobody has beer, then they don't get to serve. And in this case, you don't have beer, but your opponent doesn't have any Coke. So that house remains unserved. So once you sell your products, collect revenue, and all that jazz, you gotta pay your people. The good thing is that Food Chain Magnate simplifies this process. And paying people is as simple as looking at the bottom right corner of their card to see if they have a little wad of dollar bills at the bottom. If they do, you gotta pay them a salary of $5 a turn. Now, there are some cards that don't have a symbol. For example, waitresses don't. In fact, many of the early hires will not have that symbol. But for every person on your corporate hierarchy and who are on vacation because you're a wonderful company that pays people when they take vacations, you will owe each person $5. And if you can't pay that person, you gotta fire them. Unfortunate, but true. All right. Once you take care of salaries, the marketing campaigns begin. So what we do is we look at all the different marketing mechanisms and see how they will affect demand. So first off, you have the, let's say we have a radio. Radio towers are amazing in that they can spread demand to every house on the square they're in and every house on all the surrounding squares. So if you put a radio tower here along with your choice of food item, let's say beer, all the houses on the board will want beer. Airplanes run along a different principle that it is all about the houses that you fly over. So let's say you put an airplane right here. Well, then you would basically drag the plane across the board and see how many houses it passes. So it passes by this house, this house, this house, and this house. And by doing so, all the houses will want whatever item is being advertised. Let's say it is lemonade. But we didn't really do that this round. All we had was a billboard right here that sold pizza, and a mailbox right here which is doing Coke. So the Coke mailbox will initiate, and it will put Coke in any of the houses surrounding the block that it's in. So see how this place is surrounded by roads? The mailbox will affect all houses within that block. So this is kind of like the border. I mean, if you put the mailbox right here, it will affect these houses because these houses are not separated by roads, so it will touch them. Now for the pizza, the billboards will create demand for all of the houses that are touching the billboard. So you could have house number 7 and house number 4 be affected because this billboard is touching both house number 7 and house number 4. So once the marketing campaigns take off, then we just clean up that turn, and then a new turn will begin. So that is how you take turns in Food Chain Magnate. You hire people. First of all, you set up your corporate hierarchy. You then figure out what actions you'll be taking with all the people that you have out within your corporate hierarchy. Then you satisfy your customers' demand for food. Then the marketing campaigns start after you pay your employees. And then finally, the turn ends once the marketing campaigns have initiated. So that's the main big concept. There's one more important concept to this game, and it is something called milestones. So these are examples of milestones. Whenever you're the first to do something, first to lower prices, let's say, or first to initiate a radio campaign, let's say, or the first to market pizza, let's say, you will get an enduring advantage during the course of the game. It rewards you for being the first at doing something. And these milestones will pretty much determine what kind of strategies you'll take, because it gives you an advantage that you can then exploit. For example, if you're the first to train somebody, well, then that gives you an incentive to upgrade as many people as possible, because this card gives you a $15 discount on salaries. Or if you somehow manage to play your drinks really well by being the first person to market drinks, well, you'll get $5 for every drink you sell. And that will not even impact the demand plus distance formula in determining whether or not you get the business. Or if you somehow are the first person to run any sort of marketing campaign by placing the first billboard, then all your marketing campaigns are permanent and you can't get rid of them even if you want to, so be careful. But all your marketers do not need to draw a salary. So you can have a brand director just market away without having to be paid, because they love their work that much. So the game will end once the bank is broken for the second time, and once that happens, every player will count how much money they have. The player with the most money is then the winner. So that is Food Chain Magnate in a nutshell. Hopefully this was really helpful in giving you a basic idea of how to play Food Chain Magnate. If you have any further questions or comments, feel free to ask. I'll be happy to answer them. Until then, I hope to see you next time. Hope you found this useful. Have a great evening and good night. Bye-bye.